Nosferatu the undead, he who drinketh the blood of his victims and turns them as well into phantoms of the night. He is as a shadow and hath no reflection. At night he penetrates through walls and doors. In shape of a bat he wafts into the chambers of the sleeping. In shape of a black wolf he hunts down those who flee. Abandon all hope, ye whom he doth approach.
Welcome to Now Playing's Nosferatu retrospective series.
Makes men's bodies to quake and their teeth to chatter in their heads.
Hosted by Jacob.
This creature is a force more powerful than evil.
Arnie.
I love the darkness and the shadows, where I can be alone with my thoughts.
And Stuart.
We are scientists engaged in the creation of memory.
This episode will contain detailed plot spoilers and strong language.
At midnight, all sorts of evil spirits are set loose.
We hope you enjoy the show.
Tell me what you can from the beginning.
I'm ready.
Today, we're discussing Nosferatu, starring Doug Jones, Sarah Carter.
Yoinks! What happened to Bill Skarsgård? What are you talking about? Nosferatu just came out.
We're not discussing that Nosferatu. That's a free show coming out Friday. We're discussing 2023's Nosferatu, directed by David Lee Fisher.
Who? I'm going to be saying that a lot.
Surprise! I know. Can you hear the collective groans?
This is your pure and innocent co-host of Now Playing, Arnie.
And Stuart.
And this is the co-host who can show mercy on such evil creatures, Jacob.
Well, are you going to show mercy on such an evil thing as this Nosferatu that isn't the one people think we're reviewing today? I've put out there on social media the review of Robert Eggers' Nosferatu is coming this Friday. Came out on Christmas. Give us a little bit of time. We normally don't even record between like December 21st and January 7th. We take a couple weeks off. We've recorded Nosferatu this past weekend. We're a little slow on the editing of it. So in its place, here's another Nosferatu movie that just came out a couple months ago.
Did it just come out? Where did it come out?
Yes, your reaction is our reaction. It was a couple months ago. We had just put down Shadow of the Vampire. I'm thinking we're good on Nosferatu until this new movie. And then all of a sudden, Doug Jones, the lovable star of Hellboy, Shape of Water, has some pet project. Here's what I understood this to be, which ends up not being the case. Makes a shot-for-shot recreation of the F.W. Murnau movie using modern technology. So it's essentially in the same way that Gus Van Sant remade Psycho. I'm thinking they remade a silent movie with dialogue and sound so that it can be reborn for audiences that don't watch silent movies.
Yeah, is this a Doug Jones project, or did a Kickstarter raise enough money to hire Doug Jones for a project? Because that's how this started way back in 2016.
Yes, before Robert Eggers ever put a movie out, I want to stress that this project went into kickstarting. It started in 2014, Jacob. So,
even longer ago.
Yeah, it took 10 full years to go from funded to released. It's called 2023 because it apparently screened someplace in November. It also got a screening at Motor City Comic-Con.
Yeah, when I went to Letterboxd, I'm like, what are people saying about this? And all the reviews, like very favorable reviews, and they're like, I got to meet Doug Jones when I saw this. It was so good. I'm like, oh, okay, this was screened at some convention, probably for the patrons of that Kickstarter, or at least fans. It started to make sense.
Yeah, I wasn't happy about it either, that we're covering another Nosferatu movie in the same year, but look at what they did with a little bit of money and trying to remake Nosferatu.
very little bit of money. It kickstarted for about $60,000, and Doug Jones was a part of the campaign. He was the selling point. He was doing videos for the Kickstarter, thanking fans for the Kickstarter, giving Doug Jones signed merchandise as incentives for pledges. So he was very much on board from the very beginning. I don't think anyone knew it would take 10 years to make the film, but it had a little trouble, I think, finding distribution. I have a feeling that what happened is, well, you know how sci-fi used to put out those movies like Twister's coming out, so they're going to do Atomic Tornado or Transmorphers instead of Transformers, those movies?
Yeah.
I have a feeling people realized Nosferatu was going to be big. We can put Nosferatu out under new releases on Amazon Prime and iTunes, and so people might get confused and think they're going to see the new one, and they're seeing this.
Yeah, I don't want to accuse them of doing that because obviously this was a very long production as an indie film. The thing that stuck out to me when I checked out that Kickstarter is they're really selling this as a remix. Stuart, you said that you thought this was a shot-for-shot remake. It's not. It's a remix where they use backgrounds from the original film and green screen them in. Apparently this crew had done it with another classic old silent film horror movie.
Yes, David Lee Fisher has done this before in 2005. I think we may cover it one day, so I don't want to get too deep into it, but it's a film school gotta watch. 1919, The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. It's really considered the very first horror movie, and that might be an exaggeration, but yes, it's an important film that is about 60 minutes long, that is done in a very stylized German expressionistic way. I can understand why people would want to go back and learn the techniques of the early 20s and try to replicate, re-render the look of a silent movie. But what we're here to discuss today, what we're watching, does not have the same compositions, does not have the same dialogue, is not the same movie.
It has talking in it.
Yeah, well, they said it was the same script, but they're not just reading the intertitles of the silent movie. They have written new passages.
There's lesbian subplots.
Yeah, there's a lot of new text and subtext going on here. It's definitely, I would say, a remake of Nosferatu. They're paying homage in many ways. It's certainly the closest remake of Nosferatu compared to Robert Eggers doing his own thing and what Werner Herzog did, which was his own thing. This is very clearly a remake, but it's not shot for shot. It's not word for word. When I started watching this, I started my weekend by revisiting the first two Nosferatu films so that I had those fresh in my mind, both of the ones I just mentioned. Then I'm watching this and I'm like, oh wait, they didn't have an eyeless guy in the original one, did they? So I paused this movie, went to the original, played it, and I'm like, no, he's not there. And I did that like a couple of times. Then I'm like, oh, okay, they're definitely doing their own thing here.
Yes.
I'm not going to bother doing a side-by-side comparison. It's not that close.
Yeah, that was my plan, was I was going to watch it once as a movie and then put it side by side to see what minuscule differences there might be, because I was expecting, yes, it was almost more like film restoration. We're trying to preserve what Murnau did by recreating it because we don't believe people will go back and watch the scratchy old original. But that is not what they have done. Yes, they have remade it to kind of look like a black and white silent movie, kind of, with some color tinting and some of that processing that Murnau did, but it is definitely its own version of Dracula. Is there anything in the Kickstarter in which the director or anybody talks about what they hope to accomplish, what they were hoping to do with Nosferatu that was going to be different?
I mean, the thing that stuck out to me, again, was the green screen. And they did that with Caligari. We're going to take backgrounds from that and then edit our actors into it. Because, again, for $60,000, and I know some micro-budget directors who have made films for less than that even, $10,000, $20,000, and not a lot of money. So I guess that's their way to do shortcuts, but then give it like this twist. Like, no, we're not doing it on the cheap. We're doing a remix. This is an artistic vision.
And this director, I just want to point out, we mentioned he did Caligari. That's all he's done.
Yes.
He did the remix of Caligari and the remix of this, because I went to see, sometimes you get some really big name people or middle name people who have passion projects and they go to Kickstarter or some kind of crowdsourcing, or people who've fallen on hard times go to crowdsourcing. I'm like, who is David Lee Fisher? All I could find out about this man was Nosferatu and Caligari. I don't even know if he's related to Jolie Fisher, if that's how they got Jolie Fisher to do this, but this is all he's done.
It's the only thing a lot of these people have done, besides a couple of the actors.
Yeah, but Doug Jones, I assumed that he was a driving force behind this, that this was maybe a role that he wanted to play. I mean, again, I think of Nick Cage and the way that he talks about silent movie acting being important in his performances. I do think that Doug Jones has been our movie monster for the 21st century, right? Pan's Labyrinth, he's the creature with the eyes on his hands.
Yeah, I was wondering, he's fallen on hard times because Del Toro, he doesn't do Hellboy anymore, so he's lost that Abe Sapien role. And yeah, these kind of things, how many skinny guys do you need to put in latex anymore? We got CGI for that. It does feel like a lot of classical voice actors that like you've lost your roles to new technologies or new trends in Hollywood. And so is this him? Maybe this was a passion project. Maybe he always wanted to play Nosferatu.
I don't know, he's doing some kind of latexes. He's in the Star Trek Discovery show. He's a main character there, so he's found a way. But he's always in disguise, right? He's never played a role where he's out of makeup, right? Like, part of what we come to is seeing how he's going to physically transform.
Not a big role. He's had background characters where, yeah, he's not in makeup, but yeah, whenever it's him in a starring role, I feel like he's got latex on.
So I'm curious if you guys even know, I was assuming that they were, again, if they're doing a shot-for-shot remake, that he would try to get makeup that made him look like Max Schreck in the original.
He's doing his own thing.
Yeah, they didn't go back and research what Max Schreck put on his face and do that to Jones.
No, they weren't hewing that closely. He did his own thing. I think that was what excited him about it. And the thing about Doug Jones, yes, he is on Discovery. He's done quite a bit. He's mostly a body actor. When I think of Doug Jones, he's playing the body and somebody else is playing the voice. He's the Silver Surfer in Fantastic Four, but we're hearing Lawrence Fishburne. He's Abe Sapien in Hellboy, but we're hearing David Hyde Pierce until part 2 when they realize they don't sound all that much different. So let's just go with Doug Jones. But he's usually a guy in makeup. He had a memorable role on one episode of Buffy playing the gentleman. He never spoke a word in that either, but he really looked creepy. So his involvement, though, I feel gives this some legitimacy. I mean, it's basically a fan film, but if you have Doug Jones, who is a professional working actor and does a lot of makeup work, it elevates this a little bit.
I think it's better if we review it as a fan film. Like, you're not going to do any service treating this like a real thing.
Yeah, this was a debate. We had a debate about whether we should include this in the Nosferatu retrospective. And I thought it was interesting. Jacob, you, I think, are the biggest fan of the Nosferatu.
Yes.
You've liked all of them and are passionate about all of them. You did not want to include this one.
Again, it's a Kickstarter project. I didn't even know that at the time, but it just felt like, yeah, fan film. It lacked legitimacy to me. And so, is this a movie we should be reviewing? I know we do a lot of like made-for-TV stuff, but this feels like even a tier lower.
If people want to see it, they can click on Amazon, Apple, places where they buy movies. They can find it. It's there.
Yeah, it got official distribution through those channels. So that also adds a little bit of legitimacy.
Yeah, I know people who make micro-budget films. Their films are on there too. It's just an application process. You don't have to be like a major thing to do that.
No, yeah. It's not a major event. And I guess, what was your feelings coming into it then? Knowing it was Kickstarter, knowing that it was Doug Jones, how good is it going to be?
I mean, I feel like Doug Jones is more or less going to be the movie, at least for me. What is his portrayal like? That is the draw, is to have Doug Jones playing a monster. That is why you make this film, I feel.
Right, yeah. That was certainly my expectation, was that he would be the focus.
Yeah, I came in with my guard up. I just wasn't expecting much, and I thought it might be the worst movie I saw this year. Honestly, that was going in. I knew it was green screen. I knew it was Kickstarter. I knew it was micro budget. And so I just was like, let me get through this, was how I felt when I sat down to watch it.
Okay, well then let me get through it too. Arnie, give him the plot and we'll get through Nosferatu 2023.
Well, it's not a shot-for-shot remake, but it is a plot-for-plot remake.
Yes.
So I'm just going to recycle with a couple different words. It's my plot summary remix.
Okay.
Real estate agent Thomas Hutter has been sent to meet a client named Count Orlok, played by Doug Jones. Orlok wants to buy an estate in Hutter's town. Hutter goes, enticed by the thought of the big commission, and he ignores Orlok's strange appearance and even lets go when Hutter cuts his thumb and Orlok starts sucking on the appendage to drink the blood. Orlok delays the purchase, but when Hutter drops a photo of his beautiful wife Ellen, Orlok immediately buys the property, which happens to be just across the street from Hutter's own home. Back home, Ellen has been having nightmarish visions that her husband is in danger. And he is, for Orlok is a vampire. Hutter finds the Count sleeping in his coffin. Hutter chases, but Orlok departs for his new home in Germany, leaving Hutter behind. Fearing Orlok has designs on Ellen, Hutter races to try and beat Orlok to Germany. Aboard the ship, Orlok kills the entire crew and the captain, and he carries his coffin to his new home. He then goes to visit Ellen to feed on her blood, but while drinking from the young woman's neck, Orlok loses track of the time. The sun rises and Orlok is killed by its rays. The victory is not without a cost, though, as Ellen dies from her blood loss, and credits roll.
As we start, I will say this. I have faint praise for, it's not going to come ever flowing for this production, but I do feel like the music is pretty groovy when we get going here.
That is my biggest compliment for this film. Not when it's like doing the romantic stuff, but when it's doing like scary horror music, it's great. Like, yeah, that guy apparently works for SpongeBob SquarePants cartoon doing music, and give him a job. He does great scary music. Biggest compliment for this film.
I agree, 3 for 3. I actually really was digging the score. When it started, I'm like, this feels moody. It feels effective. It's not just taking the public domain score from the first one and recycling it, which I kind of thought they would do.
They're remixing, not recycle.
So I was actually shocked at how well I was enjoying the opening credits. It immediately let me lower my guard a little bit and be like, okay, they have a decent composer. What else can they do?
Not act, we'll find out.
Yeah. And then we get the first shot, and I go, oh, it definitely isn't Murnau. I mean, again, I want to just underline, in film school, they made us watch Nosferatu dozens of times. Not always the whole film, but just segments of it, because it was so important just to understand film language and grammar, like compositionally, how information can be conveyed. It's just considered a great example of visual storytelling. And here, I could just tell right from the very first shot, oh, this is not the same setup. They are not trying to do what Murnau is doing, which makes me ask the question, well, then what are they doing? Why would you make this look like a silent movie and then not be the silent movie?
Especially in 2014 or 2016 or 2018, whenever they were filming this, I'm sure it's all digital. Like, it's not like color film is more expensive than black and white, so you do this. Like, it's all digital.
Yeah. They want to play with the aesthetics, sort of, except in my mind, yeah, the video does not look like film, and it never creates the illusion that I'm watching a movie from 100 years ago.
Not at all. It is so crisp and digital looking and just a black and white filter on it. And it's not a terrible look. It's certainly stylized. I mean, I'll give it that. There are some insufficiencies that I'll talk about as we go, but they want it to feel like the old Nosferatu. They're going black and white, but they're making it a talkie because Americans hate subtitles, and they're remixing, so that's something new for this version. But I kind of rolled with the black and white thing. The opening shot of the town, given how low budget this movie really is, I'm left wondering just how certain things were done. Maybe there's some Adobe After Effects things that are outside of my skill level, and you can render an entire 3D town where you have the parallax going on where something closer moves faster than something far away when the camera moves. But I thought even the town just looked better than I expected it to, especially since I thought every background in this was going to be taken straight from the 20s film. And so seeing new footage in here, seeing how crisp and digital everything looks, gives this film a style that I thought would just come off as cheap, and a couple of times it does, but overall it just gives it an aesthetic that stands out.
I can't say it stood out. It feels generic to me, but it's semi-professional. I guess that's the best compliment I could give it. Like, it doesn't look like people filming something in their backyard, like Be Kind Rewind, where they're sweeting this. It's not a sweeted version of Nosferatu. There's my compliment. Maybe that would have been better, though.
Yeah, I don't think it looks stylish. I think it looks meager. It feels small, and it feels like these choices were made because they don't have much money, and this is the best that we could do. Like, there would have been a way to lean into the minimal budget and say we want it to look like a silent movie, like a old thing. Again, I don't know what they're going for. I don't know why they wanted to remake Nosferatu in 2023.
No copyright?
Yeah, but why do this? I mean, I get that it's some kind of name recognition.
To get a credit, to try to get a real job, I guess. You got to start somewhere.
And I take this as a fan film. I think that the director has real love for old movies, and I think he's doing this to make a name for himself and to get some attention, to have a resume, but I also think he's doing this out of love for the property. It feels respectful.
Doesn't feel at all like we're now. Like, I guess I was prepared for someone that was retracing footsteps. And this is right from the get-go. The movie I was thinking about a lot was Eyes Wide Shut. It's the story about a guy who can't pay attention to his beautiful wife. She's trying to lure him there. No, I've got to go make money. I've got to go out into the world. And he's going to venture into this nightmarish landscape. And it really is about this couple. The thing that shocks me about this Nosferatu is Doug Jones shows up really late and barely makes an impression for me.
Agreed.
It is about Thomas and Ellen. And we see right from the get-go, their relationship is painted as she's in the background trying to get his attention, and he's shaving for the day, thinking about how much money he's going to make, and horrified that she would protect a spider and that she'd be willing to get bit in order to put it into the sunlight of a flower bloom in her flower garden.
It's foreshadowing.
Metaphors everywhere. Yes, exactly. Symbolism, metaphor. She's willing to touch darkness. And again, are these a happily married couple?
I didn't take it that way.
I feel like the adventure that they're on is that he feels very secure in this relationship, so secure that he could walk away from it. But it is the story of him realizing how little he knew about her, how secure he was in even being faithful, and then, yes, realizing too late what he lost. I think it's Thomas's movie, which is strange. I don't know this actor. I guess he has some credits. But yeah, I would have thought that Doug Jones would have insisted it would have been his film.
Yeah, I don't know this actor either. He's reminding me a lot of James Masters from Buffy the Vampire Slayer when he was younger, back during the Buffy days. And I think his hair, his face shape, everything was just really giving me that kind of Spike vibe. And yeah, I looked him up. I haven't seen him in anything.
He's a dancer mostly. He's done a lot of America's Got Talent. He was a dancer in the Mamma Mia movie with Meryl Streep.
Yeah, so I was able to have a complete blank with him, but he does play very aloof. It's his first anniversary when this movie starts. 1 year ago, he married his wife, and you get the impression he's just not that into her.
Yeah, that was my takeaway. I'm like, this isn't a love story where he's going to be rushing home to rescue her. He seems to have a lot of contempt for her, saving that spider. He's just talking about, gotta get rich, gotta get money. We gotta tear down that slaughterhouse across the street from us. Make that into something profitable.
Yeah, he is a prickly character, and he is the focus. Again, it is his story. Ultimately, it's his journey. He goes into work. We have scenes that we've seen before. He runs into the professor. It feels like, yes, every scene that we have here is an evocation of something we've seen before, but this is new dialogue. And this is, you're telling me these are the same old backgrounds that were now shot?
Some of them are.
Okay.
I couldn't spot which ones were. I was really looking for that. I think everything was pretty much filmed against a green screen from the behind the scenes stuff I saw.
Yeah.
So the backgrounds aren't ever real, but they don't feel cheap either. Because again, I was coming in with the lowest of expectations, and I was thinking about the full motion video games I used to play in the late 90s. Like there was a FMV Gabriel Knight, or Phantasmagoria, or Under a Killing Moon. These games that actually filmed live action actors against a green screen and then used game designers to make a background. That's kind of what I feared this would be. And I think they look like some rear projection sometimes. I can tell when something's something's in front of the green screen and when something's on the green screen, but I think it looks pretty decent.
I would crack up laughing every time. You could tell there's a hard line they got to stop at before they run into that screen, and they got to look like they're walking as far as they can in the distance, but there's a definite line. Like, yeah, some of it's not distracting, but about half of it is, at least for me.
A lot of shows are filmed like this now. I mean, I feel like this has become a new way of making entertainment. So again, some of this is that we're becoming more accustomed to this being an acceptable look, but it does just look meager. Like, I feel like a better artist would be able to take the same budget, the same tools, and render it with a little more style.
It feels too clean for me at times.
Again, meager is the word. It's very clean, yes, and some of that is the video effect of it. It's just too sharp, too pristine. Again, if the thought was we're recreating silent film, this isn't the look of stringing up an old nitrate film strip.
No, but I'm not saying that that's what they need to do or that that's what they wanted to do. That was your thought coming in that that's what they were trying to do. But now that I'm watching it and seeing what they've actually done, I think they're trying something different and I'm appreciating what they're delivering in these early scenes.
I'll just say, if you want to recreate or remix that old black and white feel, it can't feel this clean and sanitized to me, frankly. It's just, I don't know what you need to do. The sets, I got a lot of problems with lighting. There's so many times people's faces are like obscured in shadows. I'm like, get a cinematographer on the set, but there needs to be some sense of style, not just turning on the black and white filter.
I think the green screen creates a style for this film that is unique. I definitely don't confuse it with anything else except maybe the first episode of WandaVision that was in black and white. That's the only thing I can equate this to. But overall, I'm just so shocked at how I'm not hating what I'm watching during the first 10 minutes.
So you're okay with the acting? Because as soon as they spoke the first line, I just wrote community theater. And that's fine. Everyone's got to start somewhere. But these are amateur actors and these are amateur performances. And we're being told this is a real movie because it's on Amazon or Apple TV.
I'm fine with Hutter.
Oof.
I'm fine with Ellen, but when they get to Knock, then all of a sudden I see somebody who's going way over the top, and I'm like, oh, that is bad. That is the most extreme Renfield meets Scrooge impression I've ever seen.
But again, is that what they're going for? Are they trying to do what the actor did in the 1922 movie? Because he was big.
And I feel like that's what he's trying to do. And I think they're trying to help that black and white movie along. Like, was Renfield, was he already this crazy guy? Why was he, like, when we first met him? Here, he gets this letter from Orlok, and the letters come alive or something. And I guess that hypnotizes him, turns him evil. They're trying to fill in some kind of gap. Again, I'm trying to come up with compliments for this, where I can.
Right, this is where we get our first kind of special effects shot.
They are special.
It's all been tinted black and white, and now when he opens the envelope, there's red blood coming out of it.
Schindler's List, right?
Right. It's a look. Again, it feels meager. I see what they're going for. There are people that could make this work. I don't think that this is a particularly great looking movie. But I guess I didn't know the price tag on this, Arnie, and I didn't have your anticipation of it being the worst film of the year either. I didn't know what to expect, but there's a lot of this. Again, I wanted to emphasize how much time is spent on the fact that Hutter has got to go to the castle and how that's creating a challenge in his marriage. And it will be like half an hour before he gets to this castle.
Yeah, they're adding scenes in, again, doing their own thing. I feel like the writer, director really is trying to put his stamp on it. We're meeting the friends that Ellen is going to stay with before they leave. In that original, because I was doing it side by side, the friends just show up when Ellen is dropped off on their doorstep. Here we have a dinner where we're meeting those people first. And yeah, it's really weird when Hutter is leaving and Ellen's like, I love you. And he goes, see ya. He refuses to even say I love you back. I mean, why is he married to her at all? You'd at least say the words, right?
I don't get why he's so cold. He's going on a business trip. He knows he's going to meet some strange out there, I guess. He's already planning.
Yeah, he does cheat on her at the first chance he can get. A hot waitress, and he's jumping in the sack with her. I don't notice until late into this half hour establishing that she's pregnant, that she's actually got a belly. Did you guys notice that?
I didn't notice that, no.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah, they don't make a big deal of it, but there's one moment where he's getting on the train and she's lying in bed and she goes down and touches her belly. That's a baby bump.
That's right. There's also, though, this like dream sequence where she's holding her stomach and the world's like on fire, or at least has a red tint on the scene. So I didn't know if she was really pregnant, if this was foreshadowing, was this going to be Orlok's baby? But yeah, she was pregnant, but because it was in a dream sequence, I assumed, I didn't know how real to take that.
When the couple is away, the theme seems to be they can explore the shadows, the darker elements. That when they're together, it's all sunny, it's happy, it's superficial. Like you say, this guy really isn't deep. He isn't into her. He doesn't even notice her. So when they're away, that he's going into this land of shadows and she's going to get involved with a mystic woman, that this friend, there's a spinster oracle who's going to make some moves. Jolie Fisher of the Ellen sitcom from the 90s is here to give us some kind of lesbian thrill.
I barely remember that sitcom. Was she a lesbian in that? I know that was a big deal when Ellen finally did come out.
No. Yeah, there was only room for one lesbian and it wasn't her.
Okay. And I see this scene and I'm like, okay, are they going to give this a new spin? What is their interpretation? And I see this forbidden love. I'm like, is this about queerness? Like, there's always that stuff about Jonathan getting his blood sucked and spending the night with his van. I'm like, is this going to be about repression and closeted feelings?
Maybe you could read that. I mean, you can read that.
But this is the only scene with that. They just drop it. I don't know why it's here.
I guess if Hutter ended up going to bed with a man, I could say, oh, he's got a secret closeted side, but it's a hot lady, you know what I mean? It's not particularly exotic in his choice. You know, he went with something hot that wasn't his wife. I think that this land, this shadows, being able to go into this far off corner is allowing him to be a different person. I don't know that it's about challenging sexual identity beyond that. For her, it is.
Again, I don't think it is either. I'm just trying to figure out from these subplots. Again, it's only a scene. It never comes up again.
Yeah, while he's doing that, she's messing around with the medium that is a little bit handsy. But yes, are these things here just to be modern, or is this an important element of the story?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't blame you.
I hear you ask. I'm not sure how to answer because I can't really tell you what this is about. But because so much focus has been put on this couple, I believe it is their story that is being told. And that Orlok, when we finally get to him, and I cannot believe how long it takes to get to him, but yeah, it's nearly 35 minutes before we're finally looking at Doug Jones inside the castle. I don't think the makeup job is particularly revolutionary. I don't think he does much in this movie. And it's strange to know that the vampire is a lesser part than what's going on in the relationship.
Artie, you said you watched this side by side. I don't know if you did it for the whole film, but I definitely feel like you, Stuart, that Orlok has less of a presence in this film. And that was a surprise because I thought this was Doug Jones' film. I thought it was going to be all Orlok.
Totally.
Yeah.
Right. And they should have been. We're here for this. We're not here for a couple that doesn't really like each other, that aren't particularly strong actors. Their relationship surviving, I do not care about. Doug Jones hamming it up as a vampire. Can he be as good as he is as a fish guy or creature with eyeballs on his palms? Like, we want to see him do something, and I'm shocked at how little he does.
I am too. It does take a long time to get there. They add this guy with no eyes who I guess is supposed to be some kind of harbinger.
The Death Bird.
But is just poorly acted, and then Count Orlok comes to town just to kill the guy with no eyes, as if, I mean, every single person in town, all three of them, are telling Hutter, don't go to the castle, so I don't know why Orlok has it out specifically for the guy with no eyes.
Yeah. They want to avoid some of the cliches, like when he goes into the inn, or maybe they just can't afford to have 20 extras sitting around. But the whole idea that the whole room is going to turn and be like, whoop, you're going where? Like, that's been spoofed in things like Young Frankenstein and what have you. So maybe they are afraid of doing the cliches from the Murnau movie that have become now punchlines. But what they've replaced them with are not sufficient. Yeah, this blind guy that removed his eyes is not chilling my bones thinking about what it's going to be like to get to Doug Jones. But it is, I can't stress this enough, the build up to Doug Jones is so long that when we finally get him, there's nothing to feel but disappointment.
I was initially okay with Orlok, the way Doug Jones plays him, the way he delivers his lines. I thought, all right, you're not a candle on Max Schreck or on Willem Dafoe.
Klaus Kinski.
Or Klaus Kinski. But he's doing his own thing and is probably the best thing in this movie.
I mean, easily. There are a few scenes that he has where I'm like, okay, this is kind of effective, or like the way he moves or poses. Like, I feel that's how you judge Doug Jones, is how well does he look posing as some monster. And there's a few scenes where he's fine, but again, I feel like he is so downplayed with this first meeting on the carriage. It's a nothing.
Let me put it this way. I experienced the original as a story about how a foreigner brings plague upon a village and he is the symbol of said infestation. And here it feels like, yeah, what this guy did, the sin of sleeping with a waitress, comes home with him. And that you could almost cut the vampire out of it. It's really weird. It doesn't matter that Doug Jones is a vampire and in this movie.
Yeah, it's so funny because Hutter is given this like rune by his wife when he's leaving. She's like, please hold on to this. He's like, I'll try to remember. I'm like, just put it in your pocket. How hard is it to hold on to this thing your wife gave you?
Yeah.
But when he goes into Orlok's place, he'll drop that and is like, is that why bad things happen to him? Because he gave up on that rune that his wife, like, again, the symbolism. It's very capital S symbolism there.
Yeah, which again, I think silent movies are great at. I think visual storytelling.
This is not silent, though.
Yeah, but I mean, the roots of this, that is how the Murnau movie is conveyed, largely. I mean, the intertitles, there's a few of them, but largely we understand things through light and shadow. Yeah, I don't have a problem with them making big metaphors. I just think it's really weird that I came for a vampire that is never going to step out of the shadows.
It's funny because Orlok complains that Hutter took too long, and I'm like, that's my note for you, Orlok. You took too long to get here.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yeah. But I'm still into the movie, and I'm like, now that Orlok is here, we're really going to get going. And unfortunately, it is here where my feelings for this movie turn. To preview where I've been at mild recommend territory for like the first half hour. I've been thinking there's a lot that is cheap here, but overall, not so bad. Not as bad as I feared. They're doing their own thing. I think that's better than the shot-for-shot remake. The background plates don't look terrible and scratched and old the way I thought they would coming straight out of the 20s film. But once Orlok and Hutter get together, this movie hits a wall and it just slows down even more and never gains any suspense or momentum back up for the rest of the film. These scenes dripped with tension in the original film, and here it's really like kids playing makeup. It reminded me, Stuart, of when you and I used to act out scenes from movies as kids and not have the talent, the skill, or the commitment to do it right.
And it's the way they stage some of these scenes. Now, in that original silent film, you know, the format was different. You had a square format, and now you couldn't move that camera around, so a lot of times it looked like a stage production. And here, they still have that stage production feel in that shot, the solitary cameras, but it's widescreen now, so, like, everyone feels, like, very tiny and diminutive, like, when they're sitting there in their chairs. It just doesn't have the same menace or draw.
You know, there's one technical thing I couldn't get past. They were not able to match shots. When they were in the town or at this dinner and they cut to different angles, people's heads aren't facing the same way they were facing in the previous cut. And so people are just jerking all around the screen.
Yeah.
And little things you don't even think about when you see a movie because editors know how to edit seamlessly, and you have continuity people on the set to help with that, and you have better coverage, so you have more takes to choose from. And here, I felt like they were just all over the place. It felt really amateurish in that regard.
Yeah. Technically, I've never been wowed by this movie. It is what it is. It looks meager. I'm trying to get over it. I'm really shocked that Doug Jones is not vamping, camping, and taking over the movie now that he's finally arrived. And I'm really asking that question, what is this about? I hear him say he knows that the lawyer is married because the only reason to come this far into the unknown is for a deeper grasp of a woman's heart. That's what he says. So the reason why he goes for Ellen is because he wants to punish this man for stepping out on her. That is how I interpret this story, is that suddenly he wants to move into that house, be their neighbor, go for her, and she's having all these fantasies about him. You get the sense that she is actually welcoming more than her husband, Orlok, coming into her life.
Yeah, Orlok even says she has unknown desires. And again, maybe Rue thought that was lesbianism. Orlok is going to do some freaky vampire stuff. But because this wife has been framed, she's willing to touch the spider. And she is the light that can destroy darkness, but the darkness will also destroy her. Like, it feels like this is all about this wife and this hidden life she lives. And yet she's not in this enough for it to really feel like it's about her either.
Yeah, she's a picture in a clock face, right? You know, a pocket watch. And he calls it the most valuable piece that he possesses. This is a fable about a man that thinks that he knows his wife, owns his wife, can walk away from his wife because everything is secure, and to find out that she has hidden desires, into things, and yeah, that in the end, when he realizes that he truly wants her in his life, he's going to lose her. This darkness, this shadow man will take her from him. And while that's fine, I guess it really puts a large importance on really having empathy and caring about Ellen and Thomas. And that is not what this movie is capable of doing.
No, Thomas is a lost cause, I think. I don't think the actor's terrible, but the way that he's been written here, it's hard to have any empathy for him. He's going to have the arc, though, because he goes from this cad who thoughtlessly cheats on his wife without any hesitation to learning that she is something to be valued. But then, since he's not going to be a likable character at the beginning, we really need to like Ellen and see what Ellen likes about him. And we don't really get that. We get, like you guys have mentioned, the weird scene where her friend kind of comes onto her. There's many kinds of love, and is caressing her with her hand.
Forbidden.
And then she has dreams of Orlok, but they're kind of nightmarish visions. I didn't take it as she was being seduced by Orlok. I thought she was having visions of nightmares yet to come.
There's the scene where she's walking on the ledge, and I don't know what your guys' interpretation of this, but you're cutting back and forth with Orlok going into Thomas's room and presumably sucking his blood, and you feel like he's about to attack him, but he sees that Orlok sees Ellen far off, that she's going to walk off this ledge, and so he backs off. I don't even know how to make sense of this scene, but that is my interpretation, that yes, they have some kind of connection, and that she is doing weird things either to save Hutter or to show her love for Orlok. I'm not sure which.
Yeah, there is something in the subtext about this couple and the relationship, and either I didn't care enough to like dig deeper, or it's just not dramatized in a way that it's coming through. But I don't know how to read this movie, but it's a mistake to expect me to want to care about this couple more than the vampire.
I agree. I'm hoping that we're going to get more of Orlok, but instead, it doesn't take very long before Orlok is signed the papers and is off to Germany, and we're going to spend a long time on this boat. And it's reminding me of Last Voyage of the Demeter, which I didn't like either.
No. I do love as Orlok's getting to that boat, he's going down the river with a raft, and Thomas somehow escapes the castle finally and runs up to him on the shore like, I'll get you, Orlok, I'll stop you. How did you even catch up to him? Orlok should be gone by now. It's a bad looking scene.
Yeah. You know, the boat stuff was like really cool. Again, that's something that I studied a lot in film school. Like those moments, again, the Max Schreck performance really comes through.
Coming up stiff out of the coffin, yeah.
Yes, where he like levitates out of the coffin like on a board and stands upright is a moment. And here
they try to do it.
Yeah, they try. Later when the captain is looking up and there he is standing. Like these are famous visual moments, and they are neither capturing the way that Max Schreck and F.W. Murnau filmed it, nor are they putting some radical new twist that makes you think of it in a new and exciting way. And again, it leads me to this whole existential question of why would you do this? What is your intent? I understand that you love something, but if you're going to remake something, there must be intent behind it. There must be something that you're wanting to communicate, and I'm struggling. Otherwise, it's just pantomime. You're just doing what was done before.
And I think what they did different was changing the focus and looking at the couple and doing that. I don't think that David Lee Fisher's instincts were completely misguided with what he's doing here.
No.
It is a resample and a remix and a way to re-examine and give his own spin.
Then you save yourself a few $1,000s and don't get Doug Jones, because Doug Jones is the draw. He's the creepy monster man. That's my only hope for this film, and he's barely in here. You want to tell a story about this couple, get some people who could act, get someone that can write, and do that movie, but don't tell me this is a Doug Jones Nosferatu remix then.
Yeah. And again, you're on the boat, and that's where Doug Jones is. It should be great that he's going around and picking off the bodies and doing all of this here. And instead, it feels like filler. It's like, why are we even focusing on this?
It does. It is so drawn out on the boat here. And this is where I really had to fight to keep interest and where I started to rewatch the film the next day.
You're still fighting.
Because I just lost all interest in this film. It really just drags for the rest of its runtime.
It's so boring, yeah. Like, there are times, long chunks of this film where I don't write anything down because there's nothing interesting.
Well, I mean, and we've seen it before. It should be said, a large portion of what they're showing us is just a less impressive version of the silent film, where they're just not doing it as well. They're not creating memorable images. I mean, Max Schreck was scary in that, I mean, you know, like there's just something about the way that he could arch his back, the silhouette of him creeping up a staircase. That was amazing. Nothing here. There's not a single shot. I think maybe one. When Doug Jones is in the ruins, he finally gets there by the boat and is staring out, looking across the way at Ellen. Maybe that's the only moment where I thought he looked scary, haunting.
There's that scene in Max Schreck Does It where he's carrying his coffin around. It's kind of humorous, seeing Dracula carrying his own coffin. But you get that scene here too, and I'm like, oh, that's cool, because you see the ship burning in the background, but it's also shot like the camera is 6 miles away from what's happening because they gotta fit that green screen imagery in there. They don't know how to like resize it or something. It's so far away, it removes the impact of something that should be real creepy and disturbing.
Yeah, and it's another color tinting process where the flames are yellow.
Yes.
And everything else is black and white. Yeah, we also get a lot of knock here. I think it's something that I didn't hear the last time, but I'm hearing pretty clearly this time is he's considered the reason why the plague is here. The people blame this crazy man for, I don't know why he would be, but spreading disease that is now causing people to get the crucifix mark on their door and the bodies being carried to the cemetery. He's certainly amused by it when he reads about it in the newspaper, and at a certain point he makes it up to the roof and is taunting people about it. I think it's just, in some ways, it's more filler.
Oh, the Knox stuff definitely feels like filler. Like, Wolfram's going after him because his sister Ruth died, and I'm like, I don't even care about you characters. Why are you spending so much time avenging Ruth?
Yeah, we didn't see Ruth die. We didn't see her again after the lesbian move. So, yeah, were we supposed to care? What is the focus? I mean, it's not enough just to redo it all again. You have to have intention, and I'm struggling with it. I really am struggling with, if this is about the couple, you need to have everything supporting that idea. I guess it's here. I mean, I guess when Thomas finally gets home, he is kind of jealous. He's mad that she's reading his vampire book. He's mad that she's having nightmares thinking about Orlok. Not unlike Eyes Wide Shut, he's jealous of a fantasy. My wife is thinking about another man, and I'm powerless to control that or stop that.
They definitely get a little bit better with the couple once Hutter returns to town. And I wish we had more of his transformation. I feel like we spend more time with Hutter and his anxiety about returning to Germany. In the original film, having just rewatched it, it felt like Hutter was more developed in his race to beat Orlok back to Germany in that original film. And here, we're focused so much on Orlok killing the people on the boat that we don't spend much time with Hutter and his journey. And I think we should have, because I'd like to know what specifically brought about this change where he's like, I do love you and I didn't appreciate you enough. Is it just that Orlok was after her and it was the thought of losing her? I would have liked to have seen that transformation in Hutter, not just been told about that transformation in Hutter, but it's the best relationship of the film, whereas I wanted it to be between Hutter and Orlok. This couple, it's working for me almost as well as the relationship did in the Herzog film.
Wow, okay. Not going to agree with that. Nothing here works as well as any Nosferatu movie we've seen.
Keep in mind, I'm kind of cold on the Herzog film, so...
Yeah, I know, but then there's this.
But things just sort of drag on until finally Ellen is starting to set up her trap for Orlok.
Right. She read in the book that I think virginal blood is going to keep you pure.
Innocent maiden. I wrote this down. It is not a virgin, and you're saying she's pregnant.
Okay.
It's an innocent maiden.
Right, yeah, right. She's not a virgin. And, I mean, a year of marriage, you wouldn't expect that.
Yeah, she's been married.
But yes, innocent. She is described throughout the movie as innocent because she loves flowers, because she...
helps spiders.
Yes, spiders, and yeah, it's just mystical, the whole rock thing.
They even mention that her mom was Romani. They're bringing that into it, and that's why she had these runes, and yeah, she has this whole mystic side to her.
Right. It's just not really translating into audience empathy. I'm not actually liking her any better for all of this attempt at making her more desirable.
No, in fact, I like her less as the movie goes on.
Yeah. There's very little to root for here at the end. I know that sometimes in the best ones, we have empathy for the vampire. We feel bad when he gets trapped. We find ourselves, even though we want evil vanquished, it's a painful moment when he's caught and can't escape the daylight. But again, I'm happy to watch Doug Jones vaporize off the screen. It was not a memorable performance.
He does a pretty good pose there.
It's such a sad scene, though, because here is where I feel like they are trying to just shot for shot recreate what that original film did so well, with the shadow coming at the door and the biting of Ellen and the shock at the sun. And that original film, I get its place in history. I don't personally love it, but that scene has power. That ending scene is tremendously shot and really well done. And here, it feels so much lesser. It's like a bad cover of a song.
Yeah, I mean, it has part to do with the fact that you don't care about this relationship that they've made so central, and it's partly because we don't have that connection that we did with Max Schreck in the title character. Like, there was his eyes. He was mesmerizing. He did hypnotize. And here, Doug Jones is not giving it his all. And I know he's capable of better because he's been playing movie monsters for decades, and all of them are more compelling than this.
And then it ends, though, with a new resolution. Hutter is leaving town. He is moving on. His friend is there, like, you can stay behind, but he can't bear to be in Germany now that Ellen is dead.
Yeah, there's one idea that's kind of interesting. You know, you have that scene where Orlok sees Ellen's picture and he touches it and it creates this actual, like, schism in the photo that widens throughout. And by the end, you can't even see Ellen's face now that she's dead. I guess her innocence has been ruined. You know, one of the last comments is about innocence can only last so long in this world. So again, an interesting idea, kind of a visual to grasp on, one of the few that I do, but another slight compliment I could give this film. Again, trying to do something with Ellen and visualizing it through that picture.
So Jacob Stewart, do you recommend Nosferatu? Jacob.
Now, Arnie, I know you love Grease 2, and I promise that this is going to make sense in a second, but you're a big fan of Grease as well, right?
Yeah, I used to be as a kid. These days, I just like Grease 2 better.
You do?
Yeah, it has much better music.
I know he's a big fan of Grease too. That's why I wanted to ask about Grease, because that's one of those people, Grease, that John Travolta musical, and I'm like, I like recoil. And a lot of times people mention any musical, and I recoil. And it's not because I have bias against musicals necessarily. My experience with Grease is like 5 or 6 high school and college productions that I had friends starring in, and I wanted to support them. And I believe that that's really important. If you have friends, family members, loved ones that are in some artistic endeavor, a play, a band, whatever, support them. That's really helpful when you're a young artist trying to make your way. Like, the encouragement, that's super important to give that support. So if you have loved ones, family, friends, relatives in this production of Nosferatu, yes, recommend. Go support this. For the roughly 8 billion other people that does not apply to, there is no reason to watch this. This is a high school production. This is a community theater play. My dad actually really likes community theater and gets like season tickets to the Playhouse where he lives. So if you're that kind of person, maybe you'll get something out of this. I did not. My biggest disappointment and my only real hope for any kind of entertainment was Doug Jones, and he's in this very little. It feels like it barely stars him. It feels like they may have exploited him and using his name to get funding and to get people to watch this and to give this legitimacy, because yeah, this is, I'm sorry, I'm going to say it, this is not a legitimate film that we usually do for Now Playing. This is a fan film, and we don't do fan films, and it's not even a fan film that offers anything interesting. I know micro budget directors who have made fantastic films for $20,000, really good horror movies with puppets and all that. You can do it. These people, I don't know, you need a cinematographer, you need writers, you got to do more than a remix. You know, modern DJs, I feel like, just stand in front of a laptop and play iTunes, and they're not actually like scratching records or mixing them like old DJs used to do. And so maybe that's the best metaphor for this. It's just, yeah, it's all digital, it's all green screen, it's all amateur. Like I said, unless you need to support a loved one that's in this film, don't see it.
Stuart.
Yeah, my label is student film. My definition of a student film, it's a movie where it was more beneficial for the creators to make it than for the audience to sit through it. And I do think that this Nosferatu is clearly students imitating a great film and not making an original statement of their own, which would be fine. Again, I fully support when you go to art museums and people set up easels and they try to recreate the old masters they see on the walls. I think that's good. I think learning is important.
Necessary step.
Right, yes. Retracing Murnau's footsteps would be fine, except they really don't do that. I can tell almost instantly there is not a loving recreation of the silent movie tropes. They are trying for something of their own. It is neither close enough to looking like a silent movie to feel like it's a nice recreation, nor do I feel like it's its own singular experience. Just, there are different compositions, there is different dialogue, it's far more drawn out. It takes so much longer to get to the vampire, and the focus is off the vampire. And in so many ways, this is not Murnau's movie. So even though in the credits they say this is Murnau's script, and that you would think with the way that they're doing it in black and white that they're trying to recapture the visuals of what was done before, they're not. I'm not sure what they are communicating. For all of this effort, and you know, I'm not supportive of an idea that we still need a story about an evil immigrant spreading plague. They don't need to do what they did in the original, but I don't see where the eyes wide shut couple relationship, that marriage security insecurity thing that happens here, really plays out in a way that's meaningful or powerful. It doesn't touch me. And keep in mind, part of what made Murnau's film so celebrated was that it came out when cinema was still new. Like, it was teaching us how you set up shots, how you convey visual storytelling, and add to the fact that it was made in Germany in between two world wars. The way that it captured the horror spoke to the horrors that were really happening in that country. You can't recreate that. You can't do that in 2024. It's not going to have the same meaning to go back and recreate Nosferatu in that way. So honestly, if you really want a modern take on what that silent movie did, just stick with Shadow of the Vampire. That's an excellent movie that got the original, recreated it when it was necessary, and did its own thing to powerful effect. This largely just ends up being people that, yes, are not going to probably move on and make things that are going to be seen by us. Or maybe they will cover the next slasher movie we have to cover, and I'll be eating my words. But it doesn't feel like we're in the presence of an emerging talent. It feels like these people were lucky that this thing got funded and made.
On the bright side, it took them 10 years to get this made, so if they are doing a slasher, given that they just got this one out and they haven't started another Kickstarter, we're looking at a good 15 years before we'll see anything from them again. So,
okay.
You don't have to fear about that.
Fingers crossed.
As for this film, the backhanded compliment I can give it is it's not as bad as I expected, and the ways it is bad is not the ways in which I feared. I thought this thing would be horrible to look at. In the end, I think they do some interesting things with color, the way Locke opens that letter and there's blood in there and it's briefly red on his fingers before it turns black and inky, and the way that they recreate what Murnau did by tinting some of the scenes, whereas some are just plain gray, black and white, some are red, black and white, and things like that during the dream sequences. I like the score. And overall, I like the general aesthetic of the film so much more than I thought I would. My problem with the film is the acting, the technical skills in the making of it. Like I said, I was really annoyed when the cuts didn't match and people were jumping from one place to another and in different poses, cut to cut. And the pacing of this film is dreadful. It really becomes a chore to get through after Orlok leaves his castle and heads to Germany. The boat stuff. And then when he gets to Germany, I got my hopes up. I'm like, okay, at least the boat's over. Let's get to Orlok in Germany now and the plague and all that. And it's handled so poorly and focusing way too much on Hutter. And his wife never comes off as the strong character she needs to be the hero of this film. So no, it is not recommend, but a weaker not recommend than I expected to give it. So you could do worse than this.
Sure.
If a loved one of yours did make this, it's not going to be as bad as when we made our families watch our Star Wars 4 when we were kids, Stuart. So I think the loved ones will be able to actually treat this as a legitimate project, but it's just not a very good one.
Yeah, I want to underline something. It's not about budget. It's not about what they didn't have. More money wouldn't have fixed this. I don't believe that. It's the creative vision that seems to be lacking. That's what I'm really missing here. What was the point of taking this journey? You do a lot with the funds that they had. And, yes, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it's a bug you can swat, right? It landed in my arm. Eek, swat it. Now let's get the real Nosferatu, please, right? The one that we're all really excited about.
Yes, please.
This Friday, Robert Eggers, long time gestating, I guess it's a passion project. He always wanted to remake this movie. It's finally coming to the screen, and I'm hearing really good buzz about it. So we haven't seen it as this recording, but we will this Friday be covering the real 2024 Nosferatu.
It is a bonus free Friday show. Happy holidays, everyone. Merry Christmas. It's a bonus show.
It's to make up for this lump of coal.
Yeah.
It's not a donation show, which is what our Friday shows normally are. It will be out for everyone to hear our review of the Nosferatu. But if you do want to support us, we do have our donation drive going on that we will be returning to in just a few weeks. You can hear our reviews of An American Werewolf in London and Paris out now. And into the new year, we've got reviews of the Teen Wolf series, including that Paramount Plus movie from the TV show. I'm almost done with that TV show. I have to say, this Nosferatu was better than the second half of season 6 of Teen Wolf, the TV series. So I'm just watching a whole bunch of shit right now.
I'll believe you.
And then we've got Hacker films at the gold level. We're going to be covering Hackers, War Games, Snowden, Sneakers, Black Hat, quite a few films at the gold level. And then at the platinum level, we're going to be doing the Ghost in the Shell trilogy of films. And then we have the One Ring level. If you want to hear our reviews of the recently released Lord of the Rings anime, as well as all the Peter Jackson films and even the Ralph Bakshi ones, you can support our show into the new year and get dozens of bonus podcasts. You can find out how to support our show by clicking the banner at the top of our website, nowplayingpodcast.com. Thank you for listening to Now Playing. Thank you to all of our supporters. Thank you, Stuart and Jacob, for joining me. Since it's the end of the year, shout out to everyone behind the scenes. Heath and Santiago for all your editing work. Jason for all the work on the newsletter. Chris for your work on social media stuff. Joey for the great cover art. Thank you all. And until next time, travel quickly, travel well into the land of the specters.
Time is an abyss, profound as 1,000 nights. Centuries come and go. To be unable to grow old is terrible. Death is not the worst. There are things more horrible than death. Can you imagine enduring centuries, experiencing each day the same futile things?
Thank you for listening to this Now Playing Podcast movie review.
Life is blood. Blood is life. Blood is life!
We hope you enjoyed the show.
They will no longer be able to say you would had to have been there, because the fact is, Albin, we were.
Help us spread the word about this show by leaving a 5-star review on Stitcher, Podbean, iTunes, or your podcast store of choice.
I have a task for you. Something I don't dare trust to anyone else.
Want more reviews like this one?
How long have you been listening?
In the archives section of NowPlayingPodcast.com, you'll find more than 1,000 in-depth movie reviews from our panel of hosts.
Hear my call. Come to me.
On our site, you can hear reviews for every installment in the world's biggest film franchises, including the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Star Wars, Spider-Man, Batman, X-Men, James Bond, Middle-earth, Jurassic Park, Fast and Furious, and Transformers.
It is like a dream, but I've never been so happy.
Plus, we have individual movie reviews, such as Titanic, E.T., Inception, Big Hero 6, Ready Player One, Pulp Fiction, Apocalypse Now, Doctor Strangelove, and hundreds more.
Yes. Let us talk until the sun shows its dreaded face once again.
And come back to NowPlayingPodcast.com next Tuesday for another all-new movie review podcast.
Listen, the children of the night make their music.
Support from listeners like you keeps Now Playing Podcast on the air.
Only you can redeem us.
You can donate directly by tapping the support button at NowPlayingPodcast.com.
Such is the price of genius.
And you can join our crowdfunding campaign for early access to new episodes, exclusive reviews, and bonus reviews.
I'm willing to pay you double the price.
Now Playing Podcast is produced by Arnie Carvalho.
The monster is here!
Associate produced by Jason Latham.
But you could never please me as he could.
Now Playing is edited by Heath, Santiago, and Arnie.
I mean, I'm suffering for my art, Alvin, believe me.
Now Playing credits read by Brock.
I have to say this, even if you think it's foolish.
The opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the individual hosts and may not reflect the views of Venganza Media Incorporated.
I've never shared my secret with any soul.
Venganza Media Incorporated is not affiliated with, and this podcast has not been prepared, approved, or licensed by any entity that created the film analyzed herein. All movie clips and music included in this podcast are the intellectual property of their respective copyright holders. They are included here for the purpose of review, and no infringement is intended.
No lesser truth has ever been spoken. These are.
Now Playing Podcast is an exclusive trademark of and may not be used without the express written permission of Venganza Media Incorporated.
Thank you. I think we have it.
Now Playing is a Venganza Media production, copyright 2024, and no part of this show may be reproduced, repurposed, or redistributed without the written permission of Venganza Media Incorporated. All rights reserved.
And end. Excellent, Gustav. Extraordinary discipline in the face of ridicule.